What if the final wish of a dying king could tear the royal family apart, or bring it back together? Princess Anne just revealed King Charles's last request, and it left both Prince William and Prince Harry absolutely stunned. What was said behind those palace walls? Why did Charles choose Anne to speak instead of himself? And what happens now that the truth is out? This isn't just about the crown, it's about loyalty, legacy, and the future of the monarchy. Stay with us, because what comes next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the royal family. A meeting like no other. The moment Prince Harry stepped out of the black car at Windsor, you could feel something was different. No security escort, no Meghan by his side, no smiles, just Harry, alone, head down, walking into one of the most tense family meetings in recent royal history. Behind the palace gates, staff were already whispering. Meghan's absence wasn't just a detail, it was a message. When someone chooses not to attend, they've already spoken, said one palace aide off record. And everyone got the message loud and clear. The Sussexes were still very much on the outside. Inside the palace, tension was so thick you could almost hear it. Every door opened slowly. Voices were kept low, and eyes darted around the room with unease. This wasn't one of those ceremonial catch-ups or royal photo ops. Something major was coming. Security had been quietly increased for days. More guards, more cameras, more silence. And then came the real surprise. King Charles wasn't even going to speak. Instead, his sister, Princess Anne, was chosen to deliver the message. A move that instantly shifted the energy. If Charles wasn't going to address his own family, then what they were about to hear wasn't just serious. It was historic. Princess Anne stood tall, calm, almost frozen. Everyone in that room knew what that look meant. She was here on duty, not emotion. She didn't ramble or sugarcoat. She read from the king's notes with sharp precision. His Majesty has prepared this with great thought. He believes it's time to speak honestly, with no ceremony. That was the line that broke the ice, but not in a good way. You could see William's brows furrow. You could see Edward lean back in disbelief. The mood went from tense to stunned. This wasn't a regular update. It was a warning, a shift, a storm arriving before anyone had a chance to prepare. As Anne continued reading, family members started realizing this was about the future of the monarchy, and not years from now, not after Charles, right now. This was the moment things started to change, and no one, not even William or Harry, had seen it coming. And just like that, the royal rule book was being rewritten, live, in front of their eyes. But what came next was even more surprising, because this wasn't just about a message, it was about who gave it. Let's talk about the woman chosen to carry the king's voice. Anne steps forward. Princess Anne is known inside the palace as someone who doesn't waste words. She's direct, focused, and has always put duty before emotion. So when she walked to the front of the room with a sealed letter in her hand, everyone sat straighter. "The king has asked me to speak," she said firmly. That alone told everyone how serious this was. Charles, the man who had waited his whole life to be king, wasn't speaking. That's how weak he'd become. And that's how important it was to get every word right. Anne started reading the message slowly, clearly. There were no royal flourishes, no smiles, just truth. The king had made a final decision. The monarchy would begin restructuring immediately. William's future role would be fast-tracked. Harry's return not on the cards. And everything else, from finances to who would represent the crown, was about to be redefined. This institution must survive the times, not resist them, she read. That line hit hard, because it meant the old way was being put to rest, and nobody knew what the new version would look like. Behind her calm voice, Anne was carrying a massive weight. The king didn't ask her to speak just because of their sibling bond. He chose her because people listen when she speaks. She's not dramatic. She's not political. She's honest. And for a family that often buries truth under ceremony, that honesty was rare. She doesn't fluff things up. That's why the king trusts her, said a former royal advisor. In that room, Anne wasn't just the king's sister. She was his voice. When she finished speaking, silence took over. No clapping, no questions. Just stunned, frozen expressions. Even the staff standing by the walls didn't move. It wasn't just the message, it was the weight of tradition being broken. Right there, in real time. The king had passed the emotional baton, and the room hadn't felt that cold in decades. With the message out, one person looked especially shaken, Prince William. Because what came next hit him harder than anyone else. A future he thought he had years to prepare for was now racing toward him at full speed. Let's break down what really stunned him. William's shock. Prince William had always known the crown would be his someday, but he didn't expect that someday to suddenly become now. As Anne read out the king's accelerated succession plan, you could see it. William's whole body stiffened, his hands clenched, his mouth tightened. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. He thought he'd have years under Charles, years to ease into the throne. Instead, he had months. The message was clear. Charles's health was declining fast. The king could no longer take on full duties. William must begin assuming primary responsibility, Anne read aloud. That was the moment everything shifted. Not just for William, but for everyone in that room. No one expected the transition to start this soon. Not even William. He always knew this was coming, a royal insider said, but it still felt like the floor dropped out from under him. William looked over at Harry, who stood silently at the back. For a brief second, their eyes met. There were no words, just a glance that said everything. The pressure, the past, the pain. Despite their silence, they both knew this was a turning point. But only one of them was being asked to carry the crown. And that weight is heavy. Even before this meeting, William had been slowly taking on more. Sitting in for events, meeting ministers, studying state papers. But that was preparation. This was real. This was happening. He wasn't just stepping into his father's shoes. He was stepping into the storm, with the eyes of the world watching. And the worst part? He had no say in the timing. Charles's illness had stolen that luxury from him. And while William faced the weight of the crown, another kind of pressure was building across the room. The family was cracking, the tension boiling over. In the next chapter, things go from controlled silence to emotional eruption. Stay with us. Fractures behind closed doors. As Princess Anne folded the letter and stepped back, silence still filled the room. But it didn't last. Prince Edward, usually calm and reserved, was the first to speak. "Are we really doing this now?" he asked, looking not at Anne, but directly at William. Camilla's voice soon followed, quietly but firmly. She questioned the speed of this transition. "It's too much, too fast," she said. And just like that, the dam broke. A wave of royal tension that had built up over years finally spilled out. William didn't respond at first. His jaw tightened. Harry remained in the background, watching every reaction, but not saying a word. Then came the voices, heated, overlapping, emotional. Even Anne, usually the one to restore order, let them vent. This wasn't just about a new role or a new reign. It was about years of unresolved conflict, public scrutiny, and private pain. It felt like the whole family was finally saying what they'd been holding in since the Queen died, one insider later said. In the midst of it all, Camilla surprised many by stepping up. She wasn't just defending Charles, She was defending the structure. She asked how the monarchy would look if too much changed too fast. "We must not look divided," she said. But ironically, her words highlighted exactly how divided they were. Edward tried to be the peacekeeper, but even he was overwhelmed. For once, the family's famous royal composure cracked right in front of each other. Everyone left that room with more questions than answers. Charles wasn't there to calm them. Anne had done her part. Now, the future sat in the hands of those who didn't agree on what it should look like. And outside those walls, the public knew none of it. Yet. But they would. Because something had clearly changed. And soon, the whole world would feel it. From behind-the-scenes arguments to looming decisions, things were unraveling fast. But amidst the chaos, one quiet truth remained. King Charles wasn't acting out of ego. He was acting out of urgency. And now, for the first time, the real reason behind his decision was starting to emerge. Charles's race against time. While his family debated the future, King Charles sat elsewhere in Windsor, far from the noise. Not by choice, but by necessity. His doctors had advised against emotional stress. "Your Majesty, your body needs quiet," one reportedly told him. His illness, long rumored, now confirmed in close circles, had changed everything. And that night, for the first time, the monarch's crown began to feel more like a countdown clock. Charles didn't make his decision overnight. He spent weeks drafting and redrafting that message Anne had delivered. Every word had been measured, every line debated with his closest advisors. He didn't want to seem weak, but he also knew time wasn't on his side. "He's not stepping back because he wants to," said one insider. "He's stepping back because he might not have the time to finish what he started." Behind closed doors, Charles had studied history closely. He knew the damage rushed abdications had caused in other monarchies, especially across Europe. He didn't want William to inherit a throne that was unstable. He wanted to give him structure, direction, a chance to lead with clarity, not chaos. That's why this wasn't just about titles or tradition, it was about survival, not just of the crown, but of the very idea of monarchy in the modern world. Charles's plan included major reforms: fewer working royals, less public money, more transparency. Some of it had already started quietly, but the public hadn't seen the full scope yet, and Charles feared that, without a clear and timely transition, the crown could lose relevance altogether. "He wants to pass the monarchy on in better shape than he received it," said a former advisor. But to do that, he had to act while he still could. With Charles preparing for the end of his reign, all eyes now turned to the man who would inherit it. But William wouldn't do it alone, because standing right beside him, without ever asking for the spotlight, was a woman quietly becoming the true center of the monarchy. Let's talk about Kate. William and Kate take the helm. Even before this royal shakeup, Kate Middleton had been stepping deeper into royal life. But now, it was different. Now she was stepping into history. As Charles faded into the background and William moved closer to the throne, Kate's role grew in silence. No fanfare, no headlines, just steady, calm presence. "She doesn't ask to be at the center," said one royal aide, "but somehow, she always ends up there." Behind palace walls, Kate had already become a crucial figure. She was attending private briefings, managing royal programs, and offering input on family decisions. Her public appearances weren't just about waving or posing. She was shaping policy, especially on mental health and early childhood development. Unlike Diana or Meghan, who had strained relationships with the system, Kate found a way to work within it, and even improve it. Charles trusted her, deeply, more than many expected. Their relationship, once formal, had grown genuinely warm over time. He'd ask her for advice, especially about William and the kids. She had a way of understanding both the public and the private pressures of royal life. "She's the anchor," one source close to the family said. "She keeps William grounded, and the family calm." In moments of chaos, Kate was steady. That made her not just a duchess, but the beating heart of the future monarchy. While William prepared to lead with authority, Kate prepared to lead with empathy. Their teamwork, though not loudly advertised, had become the new foundation of the royal image. People saw it. People trusted it. And as Charles's reign drew to a close, it became more obvious than ever. This wasn't just William's throne to inherit. It was their throne to share. Kate and William may be the future, but the past hasn't let go just yet. The royal spotlight is shifting, but so is the pressure. And in the next chapter, we'll explore how Kate's quiet power could either heal or haunt the monarchy's next era. Stay with us. Kate's quiet power. In a family where titles usually define influence, Kate Middleton earned hers in an entirely different way. She didn't come from aristocracy. She didn't arrive with centuries of tradition behind her. But she brought something even more powerful: stability. Without ever demanding attention, Kate became the person both the royals and the public quietly began to rely on. She never pushes, but she's always there, one senior aide noted. That's her strength. Her rise wasn't marked by dramatic headlines. There were no declarations or sudden shifts. It was slow, careful, and completely intentional. Kate took on engagements alone, represented the crown abroad, and built initiatives from the ground up, especially in early childhood development and mental health. Her style wasn't flashy. It was focused. She didn't need to dominate a room to lead it. And that, in a family often criticized for being out of touch, made her seem real. Within the palace, Kate had become a trusted figure behind the scenes. Charles often asked for her opinion, not just out of courtesy, but because he valued her judgment. Staff said that during tense moments, especially involving family disputes, Kate was often the one person everyone listened to. She wasn't just William's partner. She had become the monarchy's emotional compass. "She brings calm where there's chaos," said one insider. "She's what this family needs right now." Even in the face of personal attacks, like Meghan's claim during the Oprah interview that Kate made her cry, Kate never responded publicly. She didn't issue statements or go on record. She just continued working. That silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. It showed discipline. It showed dignity. And it earned her something few in the royal family have held consistently in recent years: public respect. Her approval ratings remain among the highest in the royal family. Quiet power, it turns out, may be the strongest kind. But in today's world, quiet power isn't always enough. In the digital age, every royal step is tracked, tweeted, and turned into a headline. And Charles knew this better than anyone. That's why he had already started shifting how the monarchy handles the media. And Kate's strength would be tested like never before. Managing the crown in the age of social media. Once upon a time, the royal family could rely on tradition to protect them. But those days are gone. Today, every royal moment is captured in real time and judged instantly. A single photo, a facial expression, a headline out of context. In this new era, King Charles knew that the crown needed more than etiquette. It needed strategy. That's why he created something brand new: the Royal Social Media Council. It sounds like something out of Silicon Valley, not Buckingham Palace, but it was real. Charles brought together digital experts and traditional advisors to monitor how royal stories moved online. Every post, every comment, every rumor. "We no longer have the luxury of silence," Charles reportedly said in one closed-door meeting. He was right, because silence in this world gets filled by speculation and sometimes by scandal. The council began shaping how royal events were covered. Engagements became shorter, more focused. Spontaneous photos were reduced. Even statements were released with careful timing to shape digital conversations. And Kate, who had always carried herself with care, found herself adjusting too. Her appearances became even more polished. Her causes more visible. She understood the rules had changed. "You have to play the game to protect the crown," one former press officer said. Kate learned that faster than anyone. This was also about damage control. After Harry and Meghan's Netflix documentary and the Oprah interview, the monarchy saw what unchecked narratives could do. Charles wasn't going to let that happen again. He didn't strike back publicly, but behind the scenes, the palace tightened everything. Controlled press access, monitored headlines, hired tech-savvy analysts to read online sentiment daily. It wasn't glamorous, but it was necessary. The crown was no longer just ceremonial. It was digital, and every royal knew that one wrong move could go viral in seconds. But while Charles and Kate worked to adapt, one thing remained unresolved: the royal family's deepest wound. A brotherhood broken. A bond once unshakable, now fractured by silence and distance. And the next chapter reveals just how far apart William and Harry really are. The brothers divide. For years, William and Harry were more than just brothers. They were a team. The two princes who had walked behind Diana's coffin, grown up under the same spotlight, and faced the same press storms. But that closeness is now gone. At Windsor, during that tense meeting, they barely spoke. No hugs, no whispers, just a quick glance across the room, and nothing more. Harry has built a new life in California, but that doesn't mean he's moved on. His Netflix series, his interviews, and his memoir, Spare, all show he's still carrying deep pain. He accused unnamed royals of racial bias. He described fights with William. He painted the palace as cold and out of touch. "I'm not trying to burn the family," Harry said in an interview. "I'm trying to speak my truth. But those truths have left scars." Inside the palace, William refuses to talk about Harry, even privately. Staff who bring up Harry's name are met with silence or deflection. "He's done," one source said flatly. "There's no repairing this, at least not now." But here's the twist. Harry's story might not be finished. Insiders suggest whole chapters were removed from Spare before it was published. Some say he's holding them back, waiting, watching, possibly preparing for a future showdown or a last attempt at peace. And now the power to fix things doesn't rest with Charles. It rests with William. Charles's health makes direct involvement too risky. The king's private hope for reconciliation was passed through Anne, but William will have to decide, does he open the door or lock it forever? As one royal advisor put it, this is no longer about two brothers. It's about the future of the institution. And right now, that institution is standing on the edge of a family torn in two. Two brothers, one crown, and a decision that could echo for generations. But this story isn't finished yet, because Charles had one more message, a final wish rooted not in power, but in hope. And what happens next might be the last chance for healing. Let's get into it. A family or just a crown? The message Princess Anne delivered wasn't only about structure or duty. It ended with something far more personal. A final wish from King Charles. He wasn't asking for Harry to return to the royal fold. He wasn't dreaming of a perfect reunion. But he was hoping, genuinely hoping, that his sons could find some way back to speaking terms. "I'm not asking for unity," Anne read, "but I am asking for understanding." According to palace sources, Charles had quietly kept lines of communication open with Harry through trusted intermediaries. He'd send messages, updates, and even old photos of Harry and William as boys. It wasn't about bringing Harry back into the monarchy. It was about not letting the family fall completely apart. Charles never wanted Harry cut out, said one royal staffer, but he knew he couldn't force it. Princess Anne delivered this part of the message with unshakable composure, but even she was affected. Everyone in that room knew that while Charles ruled the country, he'd never truly ruled his own sons' hearts. And now, with his health worsening and time running out, he just wanted to leave behind something human. A thread, a door left open even if it was never walked through. But as Anne finished reading, all eyes shifted toward William. His face didn't move. He didn't speak. And that silence said everything. Because now, It wasn't up to Charles anymore. It was up to the future king. Would William honor his father's wish? Or would he shut that door forever, locking Harry out of not just the palace, but the family? And while Charles hoped for healing, William faced an even tougher reality: titles, boundaries, and responsibility. The monarchy wasn't just about family anymore. It was about structure. And the next chapter would push him to make one of the most controversial decisions yet. Titles, truths, and tensions. Since stepping back from royal duties, Harry and Meghan agreed not to use their HRH titles. But technically, they still had them. And that, as it turns out, became a serious problem. A recent repost from a foreign diplomat referred to Meghan as Her Royal Highness. That one sentence triggered a royal storm behind the scenes. "It's confusing," said a senior advisor. And confusion in this family is dangerous. William, now being prepared to lead, was presented with a choice: strip the titles officially, or let them quietly linger. According to insiders, William wasn't interested in symbolism. He wanted clarity. "You can't have people half in and half out," he told close aides. "It weakens everything." And for him, the titles weren't personal. They were strategic. If you're no longer part of the system, you shouldn't carry its badge. But not everyone agreed. Some senior courtiers warned that removing the titles could spark public sympathy for Harry and Meghan, especially if it coincided with bad news about the king's health. "We have to think about the optics," Camilla reportedly said. "This could backfire." Others argued that leaving the matter unresolved only fueled more confusion. William was caught between principle and perception. Behind closed doors, the debate raged. But William's stance only hardened. He believed the monarchy needed sharp lines, not blurred ones. His father had hoped for a slight opening, but William believed his duty was different. "My job is to protect what's left," he reportedly said. And just like that, his first big test as future king wasn't about crowns or ceremonies. It was about cutting ties. And as William makes decisions that could define a generation, the world beyond Britain is watching. Because for many nations in the Commonwealth, the crown's role is no longer ceremonial. It's optional. And the royal family may be facing its biggest global shift yet. The global shift Charles couldn't ignore. During Queen Elizabeth's reign, her personal popularity kept the Commonwealth together, even as its foundations cracked. But since her passing, several countries have already started taking formal steps to remove the British monarch as their head of state. Barbados led the way in 2021. Now, Jamaica, Belize, and others are lining up next. "It's not about Charles," one Caribbean leader said. "It's about who we are now." Charles didn't fight the change. He didn't make grand speeches to hold on to power. Instead, he responded with quiet realism. In private, he told advisors, "This is natural. We must focus on partnerships, not positions." That attitude surprised many, but it showed Charles understood the new world. The age of empires is over, and the monarchy's only future lies in respect, not rule. William took this even further. His royal tours now focus less on ceremony and more on shared projects: climate change, education, innovation. Behind the scenes, he's been meeting with young leaders from Commonwealth nations, listening more than lecturing. "It's not about loyalty anymore," he told one aide. "It's about relevance." And while that may seem small, it marks one of the most dramatic foreign policy shifts in royal history. The message is clear. The monarchy isn't clinging to outdated structures. It's adapting. Slowly, maybe even reluctantly. But it's moving. Whether it will survive this global reevaluation is another question. But for now, both Charles and William have accepted that old symbols must give way to new realities. And if that means fewer crowns on passports, so be it. But through all the change, one final truth remains. The monarchy's identity must be redefined, not just globally, but right at home. And Charles's final legacy isn't about ceremonies or titles. It's about survival in a world that questions everything. The last chapter brings it all together. What Charles leaves behind. King Charles knew one thing with absolute clarity. He wasn't his mother. He didn't inherit the quiet mystery of Queen Elizabeth. He inherited a fractured, digital, suspicious world where royal authority meant little without public trust. That's why his entire reign, short as it may be, was built not on tradition, but on transformation. "This is not about being loved," he once said. "It's about being understood." Charles downsized the working royals. He opened up royal estates to the public. He approved audits of palace finances. He even began discussions about returning certain royal artifacts to their original nations, an unthinkable move just 10 years ago. These weren't gestures. They were steps to rebuild trust. Small steps, but real ones. Because Charles wasn't building a fairy tale monarchy. He was trying to build a functional one, and he knew he couldn't finish the job. That's why everything was aimed at preparing William. Quiet power transfers had already started. Red boxes from the government. Joint briefings with the Prime Minister. Gradual handoffs in diplomatic roles. Even Kate was being brought into confidential meetings more often. This wasn't about waiting for a crown to be placed. This was about building the muscle to carry it. Charles's final message wasn't just a family request. It was a challenge. Could William lead with strength, but not coldness? Could he modernize without alienating tradition? Could he open the door just a little, even after everything? We don't have the answer yet, but that answer will define not just William's reign, but whether the monarchy survives at all. Because in this age, nothing is sacred, and everything is questioned. One final decision. One family still divided. One throne standing on history's edge. Will William honor the last wish of a fading king, or chart a colder, clearer path forward? The monarchy's future doesn't rest on ceremony anymore. It rests on choice. And that choice is coming soon. The message has been delivered. The king's final wish is now in William's hands. Will he open the door, or close it forever? As Charles fades from the spotlight, the future of the monarchy depends not just on power, but on choice. What happens next could reshape the crown for a generation. If you found this as unbelievable as we did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us, should William honor his father's wish or stand his ground? The clock is ticking, and history is watching. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.